It is the Wrestling Inc. podcast on a Tuesday night here in rainy California and across the globe, Puerto Rico and Las Vegas. The weather has had an impact on us, but that will not stop us for some of the biggest news stories that have broken this week. I am Alfred Konuwa, joined as always by our returning champions, Glenn Rubenstein and NYC Demon Diva herself, Issa. What is going on, YouTube? Starting with you, Issa.
Not much. Slow day, huh?
Very much so. It's gonna be a short show, everybody. We don't have much to talk about, so let's stretch this one out, huh, Glenn?
Oh, good Lord. So the power is out here in Las Vegas. I was watching NXT on my phone, but more importantly, Twitter was blowing up as it has been a very busy day in World Wrestling entertainment, and rumors are abound. Tonight could be the end of an era, perhaps. Possibly, maybe, kind of, sort of. The wrestling media bracing themselves for an announcement that is heavily rumored. What could it be? Stay tuned. Let's dive in and wildly speculate with no informed knowledge or confirmation from sources whatsoever. But that's what the wrestling world is going to be for the foreseeable future.
Well, let's dive into the biggest news story today involving a woman in wrestling, of course, because Tiffany Stratton is back with NXT. She showed up tonight on NXT New Year's Evil, and it is the biggest story. I kid. Stephanie McMahon, ladies and gentlemen, has resigned from her post at WWE. A lot going on here. Of course, Vince McMahon this past White Friday came back to the board of directors. No surprise there. I've expected that ever since he retired. There have been rumors that Vince McMahon was wanting to come back, and that seemed to happen at least on the board of directors. And the belief was Vince McMahon was coming back to facilitate a sale. And just days later, after it was made official that Vince is back, Stephanie McMahon has resigned from WWE. If you'll remember, she originally resigned in May of 2022, May 19th to be exact. And she was actually buried on the way out. There seemed to be tensions. There were negative news stories planted by WWE about Stephanie McMahon. And then it looked like after Vince was outed, she came right back in as co-chairwoman and CEO. It seemed that a lot of people believe Vince was gone forever, but Vince is back, and now Stephanie's out. So read into that what you will. Triple H is now down to his final H as the Triple H era is in peril. A lot of people believing that perhaps Vince McMahon is one step closer to coming back to creative. And the interesting thing about this is we were talking on Friday about Vince McMahon's return, in that Vince McMahon return was announced early in the morning before the stock market opened, because a lot of people would speculate that it would be sold, and that really jumped the stock price. This Vince McMahon or Stephanie McMahon resignation was announced right after the market closed, just like when Vince retired. So that kind of telegraphs to me that WWE may have thought that people were not going to take kindly to this news in terms of the market. Stephanie McMahon posted on Twitter, then, now, forever together. And she included an image of a letter that says, about 8 months ago, I took a leave of absence. Within a few weeks, unexpectedly, had the opportunity of a lifetime. And she went on to say that our founder, Vince McMahon, has returned as executive chair and is leading an exciting process regarding strategic alternatives. So while she continues to put out a positive vibe about her leaving, Issa, how do you react to Stephanie McMahon stepping down from her post as CEO?
I mean, my first reaction was shock and sadness. I like Stephanie McMahon a lot. So I was very shocked by the news. And of course, you can't help but to speculate what really is going on the inside, based exactly on what you just said. She left before the reports came out about Vince McMahon. Then Vince is out. Then she comes back. Vince comes back. She's out. It really makes you question, the family, the family reunions in the McMahon household can't be any good. And where is Shane McMahon?
Oh, he's coming to the board. The best in the world is coming to the board. You get ready for it. Right, Glenn?
Well, I think we know who Soraya's tag partner is going to be Wednesday. Tomorrow night on AEW. But seriously, we just kind of gotten done making the Succession comparisons. This is the most Succession shit ever.
Oh, yeah.
It's like Shiv's out. Somehow Tom's still got his power position. The old man's back running the show, pulling the strings. I mean, this is absolutely freaky. You might as well script this. I mean, because this is how this is playing out.
A month ago, when those rumors broke that Vince McMahon was wanting to come back, I said on this podcast to you that because we watched Succession, I did not think that it was out of the possibility of him coming back. This is pretty much exactly how Succession played out, in that Logan Roy was yeeted from his own company and managed to use the inner workings of the board to come back on.
Yeah. Okay, apparently my headset's not going to work. So you got my iPhone mic. That's what you're dealing with tonight.
You sound lovely.
Well, no, I mean, this is absolutely nuts. As Heather saying in the chat, as an HR professional, this is wild. I mean, there's talks now about, shareholders taking action potentially. Oh, my power's back on. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? It's pretty crazy. It's pretty wild times. And, I mean, I'm here for it, man. But at the same time, if a sale is imminent, who's that sale going to be to? Because that's really going to change some things, Yeah,
we'll get into the sale talk, but Issa, back to you in terms of Stephanie McMahon. How do you think this changes the dynamic? Do you think this is going to be different from WWE moving forward?
He's very talented, very great at what he does. I would assume that he was probably making the majority of the CEO decisions, maybe consulting with Stephanie McMahon. So my main concern came as her position as a chairwoman in the board was more of a concern to me, just having that vote, which we'll get into. Vince McMahon is voted again as, the chairman by the board unanimously. But that's what it came down to me. I feel like Nick Khan is more strong when it comes to playing the CEO role. But yeah, to me, the first speculation that I couldn't help was how long does Triple H have left? And is this company possibly being sold to something that maybe Stephanie doesn't agree with?
All kinds of speculation. That's very interesting. I mean, we're going to get into the suitors that WWE has. Of course, shout out to Dylan Matthews, friends of the show. So what do you guys want to talk about? Quoting the great Cody Rhodes. And of course, it's obvious what everybody wants to talk about. You guys were fired up in the chat before we even got on air, talking about these speculation and this new news story about Stephanie McMahon leaving She Black for $199. Says Triple H's days are numbered, unfortunately. And unfortunately, I agree. I really do think that the fact that Stephanie McMahon wants to step down kind of signals to me, and the fact that they waited until after the market closed to say this, it signals to me that Vince McMahon definitely has intentions to go back to creative. And Stephanie McMahon is Triple H's biggest ally. This is just as much the Stephanie McMahon era as it is the Triple H era. So I do think that Stephanie McMahon stepping down really hurts Triple H's power. Vince McMahon easing his way back in. There are ways WWE, I think, could sell this company and Vince McMahon retains control over Triple H, which we'll get into soon. But I think it's pretty scary times that people think the Triple H era is over. Do you believe the Triple H era is coming to an end, Issa?
Yeah, but I'm hopeful, like a hopeful romantic here, hoping that it's not. Can we at least get the Rumble book by Triple H? That's all I'm asking for. Can we at least get a Rumble book by Triple H? I was super excited. And here we thought that nothing was going to top 2022 news-wise. And here's 2023, 10 days in, already wilding.
Yeah, it's going to be on pace to top 2022, but this feels just as wild as 2023. This feels like 2022A. You know how like some Netflix shows will end in the middle of the season and then they'll do, start up in the second half of the season? That's what this feels like. Like we're starting in the second half of 2023, Glenn.
Yeah, they didn't want to pay for a whole other full season, so they just broke the last one into two.
Yeah.
No, I think this is really nuts. Depending on who the buyer is, could really signal some changes. I mean, let's just break down some of the possibilities. It's like, if you have NBC Universal buy WWE, what does that mean for their relationship with Fox? And
to tee you up, Glenn, before you move forward, we can talk about not only the buyers, but also there are odds in Vegas right down the street from you as to who could buy WWE. So Comcast leads the way, -140, basically means you spend $140 to win $100. But then it gets interesting. Disney at +350, Endeavor at +900, Amazon +950, Netflix +1200, Fox at +1200, Liberty Media, who owns the Formula One group, revived them +1500, Warner Brothers Discovery, which airs AEW, +1500. And then we have some fun with Dwayne Johnson, Redbird Capital +2000, Sovereign Wealth of Saudi Arabia +2000, and of course, Tony Twitterfingers himself in All Elite Wrestling to buy WWE at +3000. So what are your thoughts on all these suitors and who could buy, Glenn?
Well, plus 2,000. I think I should go make a bet right now before the news breaks, if the rumors are true. But no, here's the thing. Okay, so you've got Universal, which is going to make it really weird with Fox for this last bid to finish out the Fox deal. You have Disney, who's probably not stoked about the streaming rights being on Peacock. An independent buyer that doesn't have a streaming service or doesn't have a TV network really makes the most sense, because then they can leverage, negotiate, take it to another party. They could do a lot more. But I mean, look, let's just be straight up about this. Like, on the internet right now, again, wild speculation, completely unfounded.
Do we still have Glenn?
No, he froze up for me. So,
Glenn? By the Illuminati, Issa, take it from here.
Yeah, he's being silenced. Let's be real. It's me and my dog. We're buying WWE.
Can I get in on this venture capitalist group? I wasn't consulted about this.
It's crazy that all the speculations and the rumors coming online. What do you think, Alfred? Who do you think is most likely to be the winning bet here for WWE?
That's a great question, winning bet. I have gone on record and say NBC Universal, and they're the big favorite. But if I'm betting and the gambler in me, the guy who bets on sports and stuff like that, tries to find a good underdog value, I'm looking at my money and who I'm actually legitimately going to put my money on. Endeavor Group at plus 900 is some smart money. I could absolutely see that happening. And that means if you spend $100 betting on Endeavor, you could win $900. So you spend a couple $100, you're $1,000 right there. Endeavor would probably be the most likely route if WWE goes private, which, based on how the tea leaves have gone now, I think WWE is very likely to go private. And Endeavor already has UFC. Ari Emanuel and Endeavor have a relationship with WWE. I could see a situation where Endeavor helps fund a private venture with WWE. It makes Glenn so furious he left the podcast. But absolutely, Endeavor at plus 900 is a good money. Also, don't sleep on Liberty Media at plus 1,500 is also a great bet. They have single-handedly made Formula One into more of a mainstream property by putting it on Netflix, giving it this great reality show. And believe me when I say, that has not been ignored by WWE. WWE officials have seen how they've really revived Formula One.
We're going to be paying $80 to watch WrestleMania instead of $4.99 on Peacock. Because UFC, I used to be a big fan of UFC, and once this ESPN Plus deal happened, I only watch what I have to watch. I don't watch it the way that I used to, and it's because of that. You're paying a subscription service, plus you're paying for the pay-per-views. It's a lot.
Yeah, Glenn, do you think WWE would go back to pay-per-view under a UFC model with Endeavor?
Glenn is being silenced. Oh, there he is.
I was saying, I think UFC's all in on this slapping league. So do they really have room for WWE in their empire?
Yeah, in and out of UFC, they're slapping. Well, and people seem to be very tight.
I understood the joke. I'm so proud.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's an interesting point you did bring up, Issa, about WWE having to charge. I wonder if they bought, you don't know what it's going to look like, but WWE does have that $1 billion deal, which they were able to lease WWE Network. Endeavor could look at that and say, hey, we could air these for $4.99. That if we're going to make $1 billion guaranteed, hell yeah, we're airing these for $4.99. So I know that UFC is airing these pay-per-views for a lot more than a WWE would. They're up to $80 now. But UFC does not have like a UFC network that they have $1 billion of income coming in. So I think that would change the way they would see a WWE premium live event, Issa. Looks like you're on mute, Issa.
Yeah, I was just agreeing with you and saying everything is so crazy right now. All of the rumors. Listen, I'm gonna send you something that just made me laugh. Okay.
Oh, I can't wait.
I just texted it to you.
Channel BX NYC for $2 says, I like Stephanie McMahon to start a podcast. You are not alone, but I don't think that'll ever happen. Stephanie McMahon is probably the most buttoned-up person in WWE in terms of knowing what to say, when to say it, how to say it. She's very good at that company line and does not put any of her personal business out there outside of pictures of her dog, Andre. So I do not think we are going to be seeing a Stephanie McMahon podcast, but a boy can dream, and so can Channel BX NYC. Stephen Marcucci, friend of the show, for $1.99. Will Triple H and Steph start their own wrestling company? What do you think, Issa?
No, I think they're gonna be okay. Maybe they'll go and be home and take care of their daughters, and I don't see that happening.
Did you send this on Twitter or how
The
did
group
we
chat, the group chat.
Okay, group chat. Okay, I'll take a look at that pretty soon. But we are in some strange times, ladies and gentlemen. Very lively in the chat, very lively on this show. Great viewership.
What do you think is gonna happen though? Like, let's say that these rumors that we're seeing on Twitter are true, and it is the Saudi people that purchased WWE. How do you think that would impact everything?
If it was a
Is
Saudi
Mansoor going to be the one that dethrones Roman Reigns?
Yeah, possibly. Mustafa Ali would want an opportunity, and he would actually get these opportunities. That's what would happen if the Saudi Arabian government. It'd be interesting to see politically how some of these,
I don't know what's going on tonight. We're all falling apart. Glenn is back in his normal setup.
I'm back in the studio. I said, screw it. Yeah, man. Okay, so this is
Alfred is being silenced. I was being silenced. You couldn't stay on. Like, this is crazy.
Because we're here and telling people the truth, and they're trying to silence us. You know how Alfred found out Vince was coming back? He got a charcuterie board sent to him last Thursday, and when he finished the meat and cheese, engraved, burned into the wood, said, "I'm back, pal."
It didn't say pal. It's in a much more inferior language. It rhymes with snitches, but you're very, very, very close.
Oh my god, this is all insane.
No, but here's the thing. Okay, and the point is, we're doing this podcast, and what happened the last time there were rumors when we did this podcast? By the time we got to the end of the podcast, the story was confirmed. So what you were watching here, and our view count keeps going up because the wrestling universe is saying right now, what in the F is going on? What is happening? Okay, so wait a second. Now, I mean, so did we just say it? Did we drop it? Did we do the whole thing? Because there are multiple sources now.
Steven, I'm seeing that on Twitter right now. WWE has been sold to Saudi Arabia's public investment fund. The company will go back to being private.
Whoa!
Unknown is Vince McMahon will return to head of creative, but it is expected by some people. And
that was a plus 2,000 bet you could have won on Saudi Arabian government. So WWE has gone Saudi, ladies and gentlemen. It looks like that what we're hearing so far is that WWE has been sold to the Saudi government. It's going to be a long night for Alfred Konuwa and all of the wrestling world. Anybody who's covering or watching consumer wrestling, friend of the show, John Brodigan, for $5. If the Saudi rumors are true, will you join me in congratulating Tony Khan AEW and being the #1 American-owned company in America? I can imagine the tweet. That's amazing, by the way, John.
Yo, Andrade is going to show up on Sammy Guevara's vlog next week, and they're going to have like a hug.
I expect top bars from Max Caster. I expect a top tweet from Tony Khan in terms of, because he has commented on the WWE in Saudi Arabia, AEW programming. Britt Baker's cut promos on it. So, AEW is going to have something to say, but it looks like, do we have a figure in terms of how much it's been sold?
I'm not seeing that
NXT tonight if WWE is being sold today. I mean, NXT.
If we're going to cover NXT, the only thing I want to say is justice for Grayson Waller. He was done dirty tonight.
Couple of screwy finishes in the main event. There was a screwy finish that Toxic Attraction won at the same time, so it's going to be a triple threat match. And then Grayson Waller, they screwed up the rope, very much like how the Rockers won the WWE Tag Team titles in an untelevised match against the Hart Foundation. The ropes were screwed up twice, so Grayson Waller got counted out. That's really all you really need to know. We can get more into that, but let's talk about these sale bars. Glenn, what do you think about WWE possibly being sold to Saudi Arabia?
Well, okay, let's start going down this path. We have not seen like one of the most super credible sources cover this yet, but it's definitely being said now as if this is what's happening, right? People believe this is happening. So yes,
there are some sources on the street who are believing it is true. They're not saying it is, but they might think it's true. That's the streets are telling me it might be true.
First, let's talk about what this means potentially for women's wrestling. It's fantastic that the women main evented NXT tonight with the Battle Royal, but this might be as consequential as Sting versus Ric Flair on the last WCW episode, and it's the end of the era. I'm not saying they would get rid of women's wrestling, but certainly there could be some changes. Even though the women have been able to wrestle in Saudi Arabia, who knows what X factor that throws into the equation. Second, Sami Zayn and the conscientious objectors who did not wrestle Crown Jewel events because they did not want to do business with the Saudi government. What does this mean for wrestling's hottest babyface, the star of the bloodline, the biggest, most over character in all of professional wrestling? What does this mean for Sami Zayn and anyone else who perhaps has issues, as Jason Majors pointing out, also LGBTQ plus talent that might have issues as a result of this? This could change some things. And I think that much like Elon buying Twitter, you are going to see a lot of people saying they're going to stop watching the product. You're going to see a lot of people stomping their feet loudly and expressing their unhappiness over this. And I believe they have every right to feel that way. But as we've seen with Twitter, people are sticking around still, even with all the disagreements. So, you know, I've always been a big believer in that we watch these shows as wrestling fans, first and foremost, because we support the talent. I think that there's a lot of unknowns if this deal is going through, and we will have to see what other impacts this has. What does this mean for sponsors? You know, it's not, even though some of the controversy.
Do they sell Snickers in Saudi Arabia? Is Snickers like their preferred chocolate bar? Do you think now the pitch black match might have a whole new fucking meaning?
And again, I also feel
Those
like
are not times to be joking around. Come on.
We have to take this disclaimer because I know we have a lot of wrestling fans in the region. You know, this isn't about the people of Saudi Arabia. This is about the government and their actions that a lot of people have issues with regarding how laws and society is conducted from the top down there. And I think that the outrage and controversy over WWE doing business with Saudi Arabia has definitely died down from the first crown jewel till now. And I think doing things like the women's matches certainly helped, but I think this is going to stir it the fuck back up and bring it to the forefront again.
I will see that point, and I'll counter you by saying that this is just seems like another carny trick by Vince McMahon. Look at all the quote-unquote outrage that surrounding his exit from WWE, and rightfully so. Him coming back would cause a lot of people to be upset that, oh my God, Vince McMahon is coming back to creative. Vince McMahon is coming back after what he did with those women and all that, allegedly. But now he's doing business with somebody who will cause more outrage than him. So that outrage will be so blinding. Don't forget about Vince McMahon even doing anything. And by the time it blows over, which it did, last time they did get in bed with Saudi Arabia, that outrage did blow over and they did recover fantastically. It'll just wash out, unfortunately, with Vince McMahon's allegation in Saudi Arabia. I think WWE and Saudi Arabia doing business makes me nervous from a business standpoint in terms of whether or not they can trust each other, whether or not they can effectively do business based on what has happened in the past. But them doing business together, I think Vince feels it'll give him complete control. And the Saudi Arabian government looks at Vince McMahon as like an iconic figure, you know, very nostalgic, and not as much in terms of Vince McMahon's thinking, probably not as much as somebody doing business with him. So I think this is another tell that he's definitely going back. I thought they were going private. I was thinking that's why Endeavor would be a good option, because that would be a private option. But them doing business with Saudi Arabia tells me it's almost guaranteed Vince is coming back. Too creative.
I mean, we could have Donald Trump at WrestleMania at this rate.
Absolutely. Let's go all outrage. WrestleMania outrage.
Jackson, I'm very glad that we have ex-convict Dominic Mysterio to protect the talent of WWE. He learned a lot of things in prison. He'll be able to protect some of these people.
Oh yeah.
Man, you know, I feel bad for Ricochet. This is really overshadowing the news of his engagement.
Oh yeah, poor Ricochet. That was going to be the biggest news story.
Congratulations.
So,
what the fuck? What timeline are we living in?
We're in any timeline. Any era that Vince McMahon has gone away and come back. They have it's so cute. Vice TV had this documentary, The 9 Lives of Vince McMahon. You think that guy's only got 9 lives? You better come up with a sequel. You better come up with the 12 lives of Vince McMahon.
I remember 3 years ago being on this podcast, just short of 3 years ago, and it was like, the country couldn't possibly shut down. This is no, we don't live in a world where things like this actually happen. And just look at everything that has happened. I mean, just like, I mean, you have to laugh at a certain point. I mean, this is just absolutely crazy.
I mean, my first instinct is, like you said, Alfred, what's the figure? I would love to know what was offered and what was accepted in regards to the number of what WWE sold for. And second will be what you just said, Glenn, what all is changing? Like, how many changes can we expect? How are things going to run? Who's going to be in charge? Like, it's going to be insane. The timeline, like you said, Alfred, of all of these questions being answered, if we even get any answers, because if they go private again, they don't have to give answers to anybody.
Does it get any more corrupt than WWE as a privately owned company by Saudi Arabia? I mean, with Vince McMahon back in charge, does it get any more corrupt? It's like, is Donald Sterling going to come up in here and be a co-investor? I think he should just get all these owners, like the Suns guy who said all that racist stuff, Daniel Snyder. He's got to get all these owners together. Dana White, get these guys together. Like, let's run this thing. It's a toxic culture. Like, just go all in on the toxicity.
I think
It's gotta be.
Hogan's gonna get the belt at Mania.
Oh yeah. Oh, Hogan.
In my opinion, it's gotta be more than 6 billions. No, shut up, Alfred.
I can tell you, there's no timeline where Jackson Riker comes back.
It's the real American versus a real American.
No. Oh my God.
Yeah, you talk about how much they sold for it. That's a great question, because I would expect it to be an inflated amount. It's not only
That's what
because
I'm
they went
saying,
private,
because
but it's
WWE was valued at 6.2 billion last time I looked. Like last week, you would assume that they're gonna pay a look at Elon Musk just paid like double of what Twitter was valued at.
Mhm.
So I really want to know what the amount is, because I will guarantee you they offer a lot more than what is actually valued at.
And before we go to you, Glenn, before we go back to you, I'm loving what's going on here in the chat. I want everybody to post the most toxic things that could happen in WWE. I just saw Tessa Blanchard is going to be women's champion. What are the most toxic things you'd like to see under the new and more toxic Saudi Arabian WWE? Tell me in the comments how toxic this can get, Glenn.
Why are you initiating this?
Well, we do have Toxic Attraction as the new number one women's contenders. So, no, I think, yeah, I mean, this is just absolutely nuts that this is happening. But no, my guess is minimum $100 a share is the acquisition offer. It's at 90 right now.
Yeah, it's closing in on 100. They waited till the market closed to announce the Stephanie McMahon thing, but now before it even opens, there could be a WWE sale. So whatever stock price drop, listen, let me tell you something. Again, this is not praising Vince McMahon. People always like to put you in a box whenever you have something nice to say about anybody, and they think that that's what you think about their whole personality. I concede that Vince McMahon is an extremely flawed human being. But from a political standpoint, from a backstage Wall Street manipulating, this was a masterful performance by Vince McMahon. He beat cancel culture. He beat WWE's culture. The entire board voted unanimously to not have him back. His own daughter came back and seemed like she didn't want anything to do with him. He was up against a lot in this era where people are getting canceled left and right and going away. And Vince McMahon was able to navigate whatever circumstances he was given. And he's probably going to go into power with more money than he's ever had in his life. I don't know if anybody's beaten cancel culture worse than Vince McMahon. He's beaten the crap out of cancel culture.
Well, there might be a former or current WWE Hall of Famer.
Absolutely. Vince's buddy, he's being competitive with Trump. It's him and Trump just keep going back and forth with this cancel culture. Like, Trump's probably going to shake off the January 6th thing. And it's Trump, Vince, and Dana White. They're taking turns being toxic white men who get away with anything.
It's just nuts, man. This is absolutely nuts. And yeah, what does this mean for the video library? You know, what does this mean about the tone of the content? Who knows? Now, they could be hands off. Let me play devil's advocate and say, flip side, they could say, you know what? This is an investment. We have investments in a lot of different things. And, you know, Vince, you know what you're doing. We trust you. Do the content. We need to have regulations for what's shown in our territory, as we always have. But aside from that, business as usual.
I just saw a wild comment that I'm not posting on here, but you're a wild one for that one, FC UK Slow. Issa, I want to ask you a question about the WWE as they veer away from the Triple H era. What were some of our favorite moments of the Triple H era? I want everybody, we're looking back at the 6 months that were some of our favorite moments. My personally, and I will have a piece about this on Pro Wrestling Bits tomorrow, first thing in the morning. The top moments of the Triple H era. My number one was a Sami Uso. I thought that was the best moment, but there's a lot of them. You got Brock in the trailer. You got some returns. Do we have any eras or moments that we liked in this era?
Yeah, you just like completely ruined my moment there, because my favorite had to be Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns at SummerSlam with the trailer and all the shenanigans that went down on that match. It was fun. Also, legendary moment, Karrion Kross tossing the water bottle at Drew McIntyre. I never seen such a brutal attack ever before.
Yes. What were some of your favorite moves, Glenn?
I mean, look, Sami Uso, and that's going to be a big question. You know, if I mean, seriously, if WWE loses Sami Zayn right now, what does that mean? If the sales announced tomorrow and Sami's like, you know what, peace, I'm out.
Told you he
That's
couldn't
not
be
out of the
trusted.
question.
Told
I
you
can
he
see
couldn't
that
be
happening.
trusted.
Here's what I'm gonna say. If you think the CM Punk chants were bad these last 10 years, just you wait if Sami Zayn takes a principled stand.
He absolutely could. It's the Syria, Sami for Syria, and Syria is something that Sami Zayn feels very strongly about. I know that he has remained with WWE even when he wasn't allowed to go over to Saudi Arabia, so that might be a sign that he sticks around. But if he sees that WWE is actively being run and on a day-to-day operational business, doing business with Saudi Arabia, that might change his whole stance on the thing, and he might take a principled stance and leave. If you know Sami Zayn, the man, I don't think that's outside of the realm of possibilities. And boy, talk about terrible timing, because with WrestleMania season coming and him being the hottest wrestler they have right now, Sami Zayn quitting is the last controversy WWE needs in a year full of them already.
And I don't think he'll be the only one. I actually think, remember how we've been saying for years? I mean, look at what happened with Mercedes. And we've been saying there could be a sea change moment where a group of wrestlers say, you know what, we're going to take this to court. We're going to find a way to get out of our contracts. These are bullshit, these terms you have us under. I could see a contingent doing this. I mean, what do you think they're getting out of this deal? So let's say KSA is giving $12 billion, twice what it's worth. You know, what do you think those bonus checks look like for the wrestlers? It's not going to be, here's a year's salary, keep up the good work, you know?
Yeah. That's another thing. And them going private means they don't really have to worry about that as much as they would. Not that they worried about it in the past, but there aren't going to be financial statements putting out as to how much the wrestlers make and whatnot. So it'll be even easier to underpay them in an era where they're going to, I imagine, make so much more money than they ever have. And I'm very interested to see what the structure, the power structure looks like, and how much nostalgia plays into this, because, you know, MBS, Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia, the Saudi prince, is very nostalgic. There's a famous story about during the Greatest Royal Rumble, he requested like the Ultimate Warrior and Yokozuna and a lot of people who had passed on, and so they had to get like replacements for them. So this guy's very nostalgic. So I wonder if that's going to have any type of impact on the product.
Alfred, stop. Get some help.
No, I'm not saying that Ultimate Warrior is going to come back. I'm saying there is a legitimate
think Ultimate Warrior could come back. I absolutely think. I think Von Wagner,
CGI wrestling.
Von Wagner could be the new Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, Ultimate Warrior already died once and came back, so maybe he'll do it again. But MBS Mohammed bin Salman is a very nostalgic man, and he has not followed the modern product, and he's into a lot of the old time '90s type wrestling. So,
hey, if we get another, the wrestling album out of this, and we get the band back together, maybe it's not so bad.
No, we absolutely get the band back together. John Brodigan back for $5, $150. They put the belt on Kofi Kingston just so he can get Kofi to Hulk Hogan. WrestleMania. Well, we're in the toxic era. Let's hope that doesn't happen, but that would definitely be toxic. Dylan Matthews for $2.99. Skip Bayless, the new host of Talking Smack, please. WWE couldn't afford him. I mean, they could, but they wouldn't pay that salary. But I would love Skip Bayless on Talking Smack. I would love Skip Bayless getting into wrestling, talking about wrestling. I would just love to see him trigger wrestling fans on a daily basis. That is my dream, to see him or Stephen A. Smith. But Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Are either of you going to protest this product now that Saudi Arabia is in charge? Reportedly. These are rumors, ladies and gentlemen. Isa.
No.
Glenn, are we protesting?
I feel like I should. But, okay, here's what I'm going to say. I think I am a more powerful advocate for my point of view, paying attention, being openly critical, rather than just blindly walking away.
Right.
That's my take on it. And besides, if I'm not yelling about what's upsetting me, am I really alive at that point?
Not in this era, you might not be, especially if you're not on Twitter. I think that is how they judge who is alive and who's not.
Oh my God. I mean, half the reason you use Twitter is to talk about how pissed you are about what's going on with Twitter.
I thought that's the only reason it existed.
How they keep you on?
Raj is just tweeting away right now. I'm going to text Raj and see if he wants to hop on.
Good Lord. My new WWE board unanimously disapproved. Okay, so people are just talking. Nothing new on the front, but if you've just joined us, Where have you been? Have you been under a rock? Because not only did Stephanie McMahon resign, but WWE, there are rumors abound. I've never gotten so many text messages in a 1 hour period of my life, but there's rumors abound that WWE has indeed been sold to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in a deal that is expected to take the company private. You would imagine Vince McMahon would come back into power, but all we know is that Stephanie McMahon has stepped down and that there are very, very strong rumors that WWE has been sold to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Odds were released. Saudi Arabia was at the bottom at plus 2,000. If you put $100 on Saudi Arabia to buy WWE, you won $2,000. You know, if you put more, you won more money. That's a lot of money. So Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
And you know what's weird? I've been saying for the past 6 months, like, oh, I'm just waiting for that WWE stock to take a dip, and then I'll go in. You know, waited too long. I mean, the stock's like up 30%, 40% over what it was before Vince came back.
Oh yeah, no, and it skyrocketed because of how Vince came back, at least. And you know, it's funny because when people heard that it was being sold, that was going to affect the stock price. And that it's not outrage. This country always pretends that everything needs to be fair. This country is about money, and share prices will affect on, especially when it comes to the company. When it comes to publicly traded companies like WWE, and whether or not Vince McMahon could come back, it was never going to be, oh, they're going to have a moral problem. No. It was always going to be, what's this going to do to the stock price money-wise? And Vince knew that. So he came back under the caveat that this is going to be sold, and it helped the company's value. And that's how he was able to get around any type of blowback in terms of him being out of the board of directors. And it looks like he's going to all the way go back and not have to face that type of stock price pressure in taking his company private.
Right.
Absolutely nuts. Okay, so Raj said he's gonna join us. Raj is gonna hop on. We'll get his take.
The former founder, Raj. We're going to have to ask him if he's
still
inspired by Wrestling Inc. back from the static media. We're going to have to, can we get another coup? Is it coup season in WWE? That could be something that we'll have to get Raj's opinion. Yes, he is always the founder, Raj Giri. Very excited to see what he's got to say about this. But, you know, WWE has been sold. We are in a new era, everybody. We're making history together.
Is it official? Is it official?
It's not official, but if it is, if we wake up tomorrow and it's sold, we made history together.
So Stephanie McMahon, Triple H, Shane O'Mac, who's the first one that does business with AEW or another promotion?
100% Shane O'Mac. If any, it's going to be Shane. It'll just be like 100% it'll be Shane.
Yeah, Mandy's looking like a genius right now.
She looked great in that interview today.
She did. Shout out to Tamron Hall. Like to see that interview. And she didn't necessarily. I mean, it's back and forth because the interview made it seem like she got fired, and she said it was a gut punch in terms of her.
She should have been like WWE. She should have been like drawing those, those misty eyes with $100 bills.
Yeah, it she really should have. And that's another thing. It's funny. She's wearing green. I don't think that was a coincidence. But now that she's not necessarily the biggest story, this is such a huge story. Is this going to make people forget about Mandy Rose's fan time? I mean, she made $1 million.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
How do you think Saudi Arabia would handle Mandy Rose being on fan time?
Well, okay, so you want to talk legit? I think that Mandy Rose already had a chilling effect on many female talents that had something similar going on. I have a feeling, just a hunch, that even if the product doesn't change, that might be one aspect that gets like redlined as like no.
Yes, and I'm being serious in terms of these third-party deals and the OnlyFans and whatnot. WWE was going to take a hard stance under this agreement. I really legitimately am curious to know what is their stance on third-party subscription apps like a Fan Time, like an OnlyFans. What would the Saudi Arabian government's view on women impact whether or not women can do stuff like that?
I mean, you can only take such a hard stance with this intensely stiff competition.
How stiff is that competition? Any veins in that competition, Glenn?
Rigid, cut glass.
Issa, let me ask you this. Is WWE going to get better or worse over the next 6 months? What do you think?
What kind of question is that?
No, come on. I want to hear, why would it get worse? Why would it get better? Do you think maybe nothing will happen? Maybe Vince McMahon will come back and he'll have like a come to Jesus moment. What do we think could happen?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I can't speculate about anything right now. I think everything is so crazy. I think worse, if you had to ask me first impression.
Maybe. I mean, well, I'm all here for the new Ultimate Warrior, Von Wagner. I think
Me too.
that's
It'll save him.
it's going to be high point. I think Yokozuna 2 is going to be massively over. I think, Hogan's going to sell tickets. It sold out. They'll add more seats. When it's sold out, they'll add more seats for Hogan. And here he is. Raj, how are you doing, man?
Raj Giri.
It's been quite the day, right, guys?
It absolutely
And
has.
gals.
Yes.
Poor Ricochet. He thought he was going to be the top story today, getting engaged.
Man, we had to shit on his parade, right?
Yeah. We were prepared to have a whole podcast about Ricochet's nuptials, but now we got to talk about this Vince stuff.
So what are you hearing? What's the word in your neck of the woods?
It's just been all over the place. So earlier today, obviously with the news, I checked in with WWE. Several sources said that Triple H is still going to be, in his same title. So, what is his title? It's not head of creative. It's creative.
Executive vice.
What's that?
Is it like executive vice president of creative?
It's like creative controller officer, or it's something like that. But it also overlooks live events, and there's a couple other things involved with it. So I heard that wasn't going to change by several people in WWE. And this is one of those stories. It's not like I can go get sources outside of WWE for it, right? Like I can't contact New Japan for confirmation on what's happening with Triple H. So anyway, so it's been all over the place. I've just decided to, because then I heard from a very, very good source that might not necessarily be the case, that maybe Triple H keeps the same title, but maybe he moves on to something else. And then, there have been these rumors about WWE selling to the Saudis. And look, something, with Vince McMahon wanting to come back so adamantly all of a sudden, and it just seemed like there was something that was up, and maybe he knew something, and it's starting to look like that was the case. So, obviously nothing's confirmed yet with the Saudi story, but it's, Cassidy Haynes, he's broken some stories in the past. He's a really good reporter, someone that I don't know personally, but I've communicated with several times, and I believe him. So we'll see.
Let me ask you this, Raj, in terms of WWE's potential. Let's say hypothetically they did sell to the Saudi government. We were talking about this in the podcast. I'd imagine that'd be an inflated number. What do you think a sale to the Saudis under these circumstances would go for?
Well, the market cap for WWE this last week has been $6.5 billion.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're not selling under that. So $7 billion is the least. I could see Saudi overpaying for sure, like they have for everything else. So if you're going above 7 billion, maybe 8, maybe, I couldn't imagine being more than 8, but geez, like if it was a Comcast or something, I wouldn't imagine more than 7. So geez, I don't know. I'd say probably above 7, maybe below 8. And if it's more than 8, good Lord.
Would 10 billion shock you? If they hit 10 billion?
I wouldn't say it would shock me, because a Comcast or an ABC, Disney, that would shock me for sure. But Saudi, no, they have the money for it. It's a huge international media conglomerate, more than almost anything. And it's year round, football, soccer is the biggest sport in the world, and that's not year round. WWE is year round. So you get this year round property. I mean, geez, 10 billion sounds insane, but it is. The Saudis have just unlimited funds. So I wouldn't say it would shock me, no.
And I think it's also important to remember that there might not be pen to paper yet. And even if this is thought of as a done deal, there right now could be frantic phone calls, meetings, counter offers, things coming in. If word is on the street about this and NBC Universal thought they were in the running, you know, they're probably saying like, give us an hour and we'll get back to you with our final offer. So
yeah,
it's not
and
final.
if it was Fox making the deal, I think it would be something that an NBCU would be running to counter, but I don't think they're going to counter a Saudi deal. I feel like that would be a deal that would just be, that wouldn't make sense for an American media company. And again, this is all just my opinion, but just looking at the financials, looking at the market cap, looking at what these American media conglomerates pay for other properties, that would just be way out of what makes sense. You know, Endeavor paid $4 billion for the UFC, and you know, you're talking double that in, you know, when did Endeavor buy the UFC? Was that 2016, 14?
Yeah, I think it was 2016.
But yeah, I just it's just insane. It's just a wild number to think about, and it explains why Vince wanted to come back.
Oh yeah,
You would think he would have would know that Saudi offer is out there, and he's like, I need to get in there to make it happen, and I'm not going to let the board turn this down.
but do you think it was only about the board, or was it about maybe being private and Vince being in charge again?
Yeah, I'm you know, it's hard to say, but it definitely seems that way now, right? Because now, if under Saudi ownership they go private, they don't need a board of directors. They don't need to answer to shareholders. Vince is the owner, and if the Saudis, and you would think that they would allow him to be back in, you know, in total charge, he can do whatever he wants. He's back to where he was.
Yeah, I would argue we're about to have, and we were kind of joking around, but I'm not really joking. This will be the most toxic and corrupt era of WWE that we've seen. You see how corrupt this company was. Look at the Dark Side of the Ring episodes, how corrupt the company was when they were public. And now that they get to do that behind the scenes, I think does not bode well for WWE moral decisions in the future.
No. So it's funny, like today I was on Eric Bischoff's podcast, and
Hey,
and which was awesome, you know, because it's funny because Eric Bischoff, once he took over WCW, he bought, I mean, he didn't buy it. He started Monday Nitro. He created the NWO angle, and that was kind of what made me a wrestling fan again, and consequently I started Wrestling Inc. Last year. I sold Wrestling Inc. and then now I'm on Eric Bischoff's podcast. So it's kind of like one of those full circle things. And we were talking about this sale, and I was saying like this has the potential to be you know, one of the biggest stories of our time, or nothing.
mm-hmm.
And it's turning into the former. It's I don't know. It just 3 months ago, it seemed like daisies, and all of a sudden everything seemed right in WWE again, and the creative had gotten so much better, and the talent is happy, and all this talent that was let go, that didn't seem like they should have been let go, or coming back, and it just seems so happy. And now it's just like this dark cloud has kind of come in a lot of ways, and yeah, I don't know. Vince is 78 now, 77 or 78. I think he's turning
77. I believe he'll be 78 in August.
Yeah. And man, it's just like I don't know. But if they're getting that kind of money from the Saudis, you see why he's doing it.
So what's the
Do you see
ripple
the
effect?
product changing at all, Raj? Do you think you're gonna see a lot of changes based on if the ownership change is true?
Well, already we saw Stephanie step down. And you know, last year she was taking a leave of absence anyway. We don't know for sure if that's eventually what she wanted anyway. She stepped in that role. But Issa, were you asking if the creative changes or what changes?
Yeah, I think she was talking about more or less.
Creative changes.
I think so. Look, I mean, we saw how involved Vince was in creative before he left. I don't see him stepping away. This is all my speculation. This is not anything I've heard, but just from seeing him over decades and decades, he's someone very hands-on. And he originally, when he was talking to the board of directors, he wanted to come back in his former role.
Yeah.
And then he's like, okay, I'll just do it for the sale. And now he's involved in a sale that looks like it would put him in whatever position he wants. He can negotiate that spot of where he ends up. And so, I think if it were my prediction, if I were a betting man, this sale with the Saudis happens, he's taking over and going back to where he was.
I mean, what's the ripple effect for the industry? Obviously, AEW's got room for like 3 more wrestlers. And even they've got to have massive cuts. So they can't even fit all their rosters between Ring of Honor and AEW proper. I mean, like, does this help Billy Corgan? Does this help The Rock if he wants to talk to his venture capital partners? Like, is there room now? Because I do not see the entire WWE roster staying. We were speculating earlier. I mean, you have people who did not want to go to Saudi Arabia, who did not want to work those shows. I think what Mercedes and Naomi did is just the beginning if this goes through, because I do not think these wrestlers are going to see a lot of that money from this acquisition.
Well, and Naomi, and Mercedes, then Sasha, those were more based on creative frustration. And I mean, it's hard to say, because the one thing that people forget is the uptrend started when Vince was actually in power. It was in the second quarter of last year, whether it was WrestleMania, part of it having to do with Cody, and it just felt like the shift happened. But the second quarter was where, and I did this, we're doing this Wrestling Inc. newsletter, and I was looking at Raw ratings, and if you subscribe to Wrestling Inc., substack.com, you could check it out. But the first quarter of last year was way down from the year before. And then, WrestleMania, Cody coming in, it just changed and it narrowed. And then the last 2 quarters, the audience was up year over year under Triple H, which hasn't happened, in the last decade. And so Triple H, under his leadership, under his creative control, the audience went up and the 18 to 49 number stayed even though the number of homes with cable and everything went down. So it was a big success last year for Triple H when you really look at the numbers. But I think Vince has gotten Vince. I just think he's always going to think what he thinks is right. And I've always thought Vince was a genius, but I always felt like a true genius knows the areas that they're weak in. And I tweeted this years ago, and it was clear that the creative had passed him by. He was doing the same matches week after week after week. The show was boring. No one was being elevated. And now with Triple H, you're seeing new stars coming up. You're seeing people you're seeing fresh matches every week. They're not doing the same match that you saw the week before that you always saw under Vince. So lots of improvements, and I just don't think that Vince sees that. I think he sees that his way is the best. He's back in power. It's his way, and we're back to where it was. But again, his way has worked for so long. You drop audience year after year, but not to the point where you're not the number one promotion.
The audience may not be there the way it used to be, but the money is, and it's there in a historical standpoint. And I agree with you. I do think, I think Vince McMahon used to be a genius. Genius fades. Kanye West has taught us that you can be a genius and still it can get away from you a little bit. And that's what happened with Vince McMahon in an entirely different way. But
right.
I would argue that I think there's going to be an up, just like we saw in the Triple H era. If there is a return to power with Vince, that first 6 months, maybe they're not going to look at that like it's must watch. People are going to be curious in terms of what's this going to look like. And then the creative might not hold them, because Triple H was able to cultivate something with the Bray Wyatt storylines and doing things differently that way. I think the dip might come creatively after they find out that it's not as good. But I do think that first initial couple of months of Vince McMahon in charge again is going to help the ratings, as crazy as that sounds to say. But Sega Janus, for $20, has a question for you, Raj. Raj, is it that the only way he could truly return to power over operations was to take the company private, and the only buyer who'd allow him that power is Saudi Arabia, whereas others would buy it but not allow him power?
That's tough to say, because I would think that any company that would buy them, I do think that this is the best opportunity for him to do whatever he wants as far as power goes. But any company that would want to buy WWE, I think would want to keep figureheads in charge. Like, when they bought UFC, they wanted Dana White to stay on. And I don't know how many of these people know, how much stronger the creative is with Triple H and Vince McMahon. I think so many of these corporations think of Vince as WWE. They think of him as this creative genius that made wrestling and that evolved wrestling over the years. So I don't know. I almost think that he could have made this deal with some of these other media conglomerates that could have been potential buyers.
I think it's 100. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was gonna say, but this current environment, though, I mean, do you really think NBC Universal? I mean, how many companies would be comfortable having someone in such a key power position when all the time now we're seeing executives that are stepping? I mean, I don't want to get into the whole circumstances, but I mean, when the head of Walt Disney Studios, the creative head of Walt Disney Studios, who was hailed as one of the most creative geniuses working in animation in the last 30 years, resigned over, I don't even think it was sexual conduct. I think it was just conduct that made people uncomfortable in the workplace. Do you see Disney saying, yes, Vince McMahon, when we got like Mickey Mouse shaking hands with him, on the press release? I just don't see that.
I'll say this. Dana White is on video slapping his wife on New Year's Eve, and he's still president, and there's not even any talk of him being removed. I mean, which is shocking to me.
And not to me, based on his complexion. I think that there's different rules for different people, and what's happened with Dana White. And we're seeing that with Vince McMahon. It's crazy that week, Dana White still not being in trouble and Vince McMahon coming back, I think kind of speaks to, if you're rich and you know the laws in this country and you're able to be protected, you can be protected, because we've seen these situations play out, whether it's an executive who was in a misconduct, to Glenn's point. If it was Russell Simmons who owned the company, they took the company away from him, but Vince McMahon's in the same situation and is able to thrive, as is Dana White. I think it's a lot. I think it was telling that all this stuff kind of happened around January 6th in America, in that certain people get certain rules in this country, I think.
For sure. John Laurinaitis, right? He got fired. Vince McMahon, he's back and possibly going to be richer and have more power than ever.
And to Sega Genesis' point, I think Sega Genesis is 100% on the money. That's absolutely what I believe. I do not think this has anything to do with money with Vince McMahon. I think it's a power play. It just so happens that the people paying the most money were Saudi Arabia, but I think the Saudi Arabia thing is because he thinks that's the way he could have the most power. They probably, MBS, we've heard that he's this big nostalgia wrestling fan. They probably look at him as like a god in terms of a legendary figure. So he's doing this for power. Once you have $2 billion, you have $80 billion. He's got all the money. He's never been a money-driven guy. He's been a power and control-driven guy. And I think that as fast as this happened, where Vince came back immediately the next week he sells the company, I think this is all Vince McMahon knowing this is how I can get back in power.
And Issa, what do you think about all this? Like having watched the product for as long as you have, and seeing where it was, where it went, and where it might go again.
It's just very hard to speculate on anything right now, because there's so many unanswered questions. There's still not even, I mean, it's out there. The rumor is pretty solid, but it's not even confirmed yet. I want to know what the creative direction of the company is going to be. Is this something that is just an investment and the company continues to run the way that it's running? Or are we going to see a complete overhaul? I'm worried about people's jobs. I'm worried about women's wrestling. There's so many things going through my head right now. It's kind of hard to really put things together into words.
Yeah, and take this for what it's worth. Keandra Blue for $9.99. Thank you for the Super Chat claims. Hey guys, I just met Stephanie and Triple H about 15 minutes ago at my job. They seemed in good spirits. I'm Linda McMahon too. She had her new boo too. Sorry, Vince. I don't know what this person's talking about, or whether or not
I don't know if I believe that one.
Yeah, toward the end of that, it kind of got away from them. I
think the whole thing, I don't really believe.
Rel 7374 for $2. Muhammad Hassan will return for revenge on us all. Well, I
think Vince might break out that do-rag and win the Rumble at this point.
Do-rag Vince is an underrated Vince. Oh my God, this is wild.
What a mess.
No, and so the question is, when does this get announced? Because
Well,
I mean, tomorrow the stock's going to go crazy. You know, then, but this is not financial advice. I'm not an advisor. Yada yada yada. I've lost so much money in the stock market. Don't listen to me. But I'm predicting tomorrow the stock, if it's got bound on an upward trend, it might continue to
If
do
we're
so.
going in Saudi Arabia hours, it's 7:27 over there. So I would assume in a couple of hours.
Yeah.
well, I mean, it's like Twitter, right? Like when Elon Musk bought Twitter, trading halts. Elon Musk buys all the shares in the company, and assuming again it goes private. So, yeah, I mean that's I think if it got to the point where it gets leaked, I mean, again, I haven't been able to get it confirmed. And look, I've been asking around all night. I'm getting burned on Twitter as it is because I got by several people in WWE again that Triple H's spot was safe and anyway. So there's just all sorts of stuff flying right now. It's just chaos right now, and but I do believe that this report is probably true.
Yeah.
Sega Genesis is back for more fun for $20. Thank you so much. Last week, I said that Stephanie, Triple H, and Nick Khan versus Vince was like Sarah Connor, John Connor, and Terminator versus T-1000. I remember that. That was a great tweet. Raj, please tell us there's a tank of lava up their sleeve.
That climax of Terminator 2, I kind of forget what he did with the lava. I know he dropped down at the end, but anyway, I'm sorry. But no, this is, since the beginning, Vince, I mean, the board of directors 2 weeks ago unanimously voted not to bring him back, and he's back. He can do what he wants. He's got the voting power, 81%. Ultimately, he could change the board as much as he wants, and he's doing that. So,
okay, we were debating this on the pod, and I want you can be the tiebreaker for this, Raj. Who kicked cancel culture's ass worse, Vince McMahon or Donald Trump?
Kick cancel culture's ass.
Who came back from the dead? They got canceled. They did something. They said something, got them quote unquote canceled, but they came back. Remember, Donald Trump grabbed him by the you know what? He had all kinds of scandals, and he became president. Whereas Vince McMahon, though, he got ousted for sexual misconduct and all kinds of horrible, ugly stories, and now he's back, probably in power, taking control of his own company, which we don't see a lot of in this day and age in America.
I mean, Trump suffered about a week with the. With that, whereas Vince was out for about 5 months, so I guess he had it worse.
Well, and also like Vince McMahon doesn't have that kind of fan base. Wrestling has that kind of fan base. WWE has that kind of fan base, but I don't think Vince McMahon would get 40 million votes in an election, maybe depending on who his opponent was. But there's not
you remember after the scandal broke out and he showed up on SmackDown and it was unanimous cheers.
Yeah, that was really weird. Hey, Bill Cosby's talking about touring this year, so he's going to get back out and tell stories,
By the way, this sweater is not an endorsement of Bill Cosby. I can still wear any kind of sweater I want. Okay. I'm doing it for fashion.
But there's going to be, and so Rush, we were talking about this earlier. It's like, we're all upset about Twitter, but what do? We complain about Twitter on Twitter. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of people making a lot of very good points, but I don't know that they're going to walk away from watching the product necessarily as a result of this. I think they're going to be very critical. But if the product sucks, people will, we've seen it. When the product sucks, people will stop watching. That will be what does it, not who owns the company.
Yes.
There was that year, I think it was Batista won the Royal Rumble and canceled WWE Network was trending.
2014.
It was either Roman Reigns or Batista, one of those years, or maybe both. And then WWE Network saw their biggest uptick in subscriptions in that period, when everyone's hashtagging cancel WWE Network. So you just can't take that stuff seriously.
I think that was 2015 when Roman Reigns won in Philadelphia, and it was that really.
Yeah. Yep.
By the way, shout out to Jake Carlin, who gave us $5 super chat, and then Keandra blew us back for $4.99. Oh, doubling down on this take that she met Stephanie and Triple H. Raw, she said, I work at Perry's Steakhouse and Grill in Birmingham, Alabama, where Raw was just at that location. I just took a picture with them. Miss Linda had a new man with her. Ooh, Keandra,
send it over. Let's get the scoop.
Like? Is it a brother? Is it a brother? I've been hearing some things. Is it a brother? Tell me what he looks like and who this gentleman is. We will break the story.
Send the pic over. We'll post it up here.
Exactly. Pics or it did not happen. Very funny.
Well, okay, so here's the question, given the news. How fancy of a steakhouse is this? I mean, what are we talking? Like $100 a plate? 200? Because I think they're celebrating if this sale went through. I mean, if Triple H and Steph are gone, like pretty sweet cushion they're gonna have. I don't think they're gonna have to cancel Netflix to make ends meet anytime soon.
Very interesting insight from John Brodigan for $5. Two things. One, Raj and I have the same color walls in our study. Congratulations, Raj. And number two, the story will break by 6 a.m. So it's on all the morning shows before the market opens. Very interesting.
Raj, what webcam are you using? You look phenomenal.
I'm using my iPhone.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So if you have a Mac, you have the latest OS.
Oh, that's right.
They have the continuity cam, and it looks way better than the webcam I had on my monitor. So
yeah, it looks like one of those nice mirrorless Sony cams. But no, look, I think that this is going to be interesting. So Raj, I think you're going to have to set an alarm and be up early. Might be a busy morning. Hey, maybe you can get one of those. Maybe you can get like a spot on like CNBC or something and like show up and like comment on the deal.
Oh God. I always freeze up on those things, so I hope not.
Raj, do you think if you just waited a year longer, you could have sold Wrestling Inc. to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia?
Jeez, it appears so. I thought my timing was good just because with all the ad rates going down across the board, but geez, now.
Oh man, I mean, so this is absolutely nuts. So NXT had a show tonight. My power went out. I still got to go like reset my pilot light and stuff, but I didn't want to miss this news. Oh Jesus, Sega Genesis! I'm not reading that.
You don't read this, Glenn? Come on, man.
Alfred, all you, buddy.
There you go.
Get work on the next charcuterie board that they're going to send you in celebration.
It's going to have fentanyl in it. How much fentanyl needs to be found in Vince's basement? Has he paid his taxes? God only knows that fury that would come down upon him then. Has he been texting with the notorious North Korean leader? Something. Sega Genesis just wilding in that chat.
What does this mean for Regal? What does this mean for Karrion Kross? What does it mean for these people that like Vince wasn't thrilled to have around? I mean, hey, Jinder Mahal's on NXT now. He'll probably be champion, at this rate if Vince is back in charge and calling the shots. This is kind of a weird time. And what does this mean for all Triple H has done to undo all Vince did in the last 6 months?
I think the safest thing is to assume that anything can happen, but go along with what they're saying, that everything is going to stay as is. You know what I mean? Like, for right now, tomorrow, Triple H, right now, as it stands, is still in charge of creative. Just go with it. And then if that changes, deal with it.
Sure, but if we're projecting, like if you're reading the tea leaves, his wife just quit the company, and this is just as much a Stephanie McMahon era as it was a Triple H era. And I think that was the most damning sign that Vince has intention, or at least she thinks he has intentions of coming back and really taking over. I do not think she would have quit as hastily as she would have had it not been if she thought that Triple H, her husband, is going to be able to run the company from creative for the foreseeable future.
Again, to be fair, she did go on a leave of absence before Vince stepped down, and he stepped down, then she stepped in. But yes, I agree with you. There's, the timing suggests otherwise. So, but it was great being on. I know you guys have NXT to cover. I didn't watch NXT tonight. I was making a fantastic chicken with broccoli Asian dish, which turned out fantastic. So
that sounds good.
I missed NXT.
You didn't miss much. There were a couple of screwy finishes. We did kind of run it down
Toxic Attraction are the new women's #1 contenders. Both of them.
Big news.
Yes, big news.
Tiffany Stratton's back.
Tiffany Stratton's back. So yes, thanks for stopping by, Raj. Good to see you. We have to do this again sooner rather
All right,
than
everyone,
later.
take care.
Have a good
Later,
night.
Raj.
Okay, bye.
Man, yeah, Max Dupree could be back soon.
Yeah, maximum male model.
They've been doing Making It Max. They've been doing a web series. If you watch the web series Making It Maximum, they never stop. They've been doing it for months.
I'll check out a couple episodes. It's very interesting. But
yeah, I mean, they're still giving it their all, which is commendable. But look, I think it's going to be a long night of speculation tonight. I think we're probably going to have news in the morning. Just a hunch. Could be wrong. I'm often wrong. But I mean, look at this. Look at the live viewership for NXT on a Tuesday right now. We have more people watching it live because this is our support group for what the hell is going on.
They want to hear about Tiffany Stratton. All these people, they're eager to see these.
They want to hear about the Rockers 2.0 tonight.
The Rockers did return tonight. Yeah, but obviously a huge story. You know, we should just do like a quick summary of NXT. But you know, for those of you tuning in, thank you for the 475. But yes, WWE very heavily rumored to be sold to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Just had Raj on about that.
Let it play out.
Let it play out. Yes, another storyline. Let it play out.
How? I mean, okay. So AEW. What ratings does AEW get tomorrow night? If Mercedes shows up and if Mercedes doesn't show up?
0. It's not going to make a difference. AEW decided to get cute and not talk about Mercedes being on and do these little hints. Didn't sell their stadium, the Kia Forum. I'm going to be there tomorrow. 8,000 people are going to be there. It's going to be half empty. Half this arena is going to look like Stephanie McMahon's board seat.
How many people were there the last time?
14,000. It was the biggest TV crowd of the year in Inglewood, California. And this time in Inglewood, it's going to be about half full. There's going to be about 8,000 people there. And if they do roll out Mercedes, it'll be baffling because you could have sold more tickets. You saw the impact she had on New Japan. You could have made an announcement. You could have helped ratings, which have been down, way down this year in AEW. But if she doesn't show up, then it's like, yes, it's entitled to think that AEW needs to deliver Sasha, but this is how they promote people. They sold out the United Center by not even having to say CM Punk's name. And they even hinted that Sasha Banks could be there tomorrow by saying, I'm the boss. So they're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Horrible. For a company that's really good at rolling people out and bringing people back, it's one of their strengths, is the former WWE guy debut. Horrible handling of Sasha Banks in her return, no matter what happens. Horrible handling by AEW.
I think they're going to pop a rating to see what the response is to the WWE. If the WWE news breaks in the morning, I predict AEW does an extra like 200,000 viewers tomorrow night.
200,000.
Really? You think it's going to be that bad? I don't think at all it's going to be that big.
Yeah. What did they do last week? What did they do last week?
They
900,000?
were down. They did like 800. I think they did 3,000 less. They were still in the 860,000 range, I believe.
So yeah, I think they will barely break 1 million. If
they've got a loaded show. If it does a good number, it'll be because it's a loaded show. And yes, there is that curiosity about Sasha, but how much of that is outside of the people who regularly watch the show? I think the way AEW has gone about rolling her out or hinting that she might be there has not been enough to where people who don't regularly watch AEW are going to watch. J. Caleb Show says WWE's latest tweet has to be on purpose.
I'm looking at the feed now. By the way, poor Stevie Turner. She's making her debut on NXT proper tonight, and just overshadowed by this news. I thought that promo was delightful. She's a live streamer. That's her gimmick.
What did you think about that live? You do live streaming, Issa. Did she nail the aesthetic of a live streamer?
It was fine. She needs to get her own gimmick, though. Stop trying to come for our bag.
She does need to get her own gimmick. I do like that NXT, particularly Shawn Michaels, they're thinking quite young. They're thinking what's here and now. Usually you wouldn't see a gimmick like this until live streaming isn't a thing, but they're doing it while it's hot. Like I like that there's a live streaming gimmick.
5 years later, like WWE's like, the kids love the Twitch.
Yeah.
maybe we should get on that. You know?
Twitch is already dying a little, so maybe she's a Twitch streamer. Maybe they're coming by, you know.
They just figured out Twitch.
We had that tonight, Tony D. Oh man, you know, when Vince is back in charge, Tony D'Angelo is going to be NXT champion.
Oh, he has to be, and
I hope so.
You know, Vince tried to get rid of those third-party deals, so when he comes back, Justine is screwed. You know, that the live streaming gimmick is done. If Vince McMahon comes back in there, it's over.
Yeah, he don't like that stuff, you know.
We also had Anonymous showed up backstage, and their latest message, I have to read this. What did Anonymous say? They said, you may not be able to see me, but I could always, I have eyes and ears everywhere, which is very similar to what Vince McMahon wrote to the staff when he left.
No.
Like, this is just fucking scripts all over again.
It is scripts.
And he was spying on scripts.
Yeah.
Oh, this company, like, I enjoyed tonight's show because it was kind of random and stupid, but like, just don't ruin NXT. You can have your way with Raw and SmackDown, but just please don't ruin NXT.
I hated tonight's episode. All my favorites lost. Pretty deadly loss. You had Grayson Waller lose, Tony D'Angelo lose. This was not the show for me.
Yeah. Jinder Mahal did come back. What did you think about that?
Please stop. I don't want to talk about it. We have to talk about it.
We don't have to talk about it, but he did
about
get a
anything.
nice little pop. People were chanting for him because he's a main roster guy. There was a match that I did want to talk about briefly between Charlie Dempsey and Hank Walker. It was like a technical match. They rolled around a lot. I didn't care about this match going in, but nickname, Hank Wanker and Charlie Dempsey, I thought put on a very good match. I was very into it, how they were doing it in terms of the technical wrestling on the ground type, Zack Sabre type wrestling. Again, I'm not really into this type of style of wrestling, but I thought they did a good job. In fact, my nickname for this match was Dana White because I thought it slapped. Incredible athletic accomplishment between these.
Keep talking about this. I'm going to go get something to drink because I don't think we're wrapping this up anytime soon.
Yeah, we'll be about 5 more minutes. You know what? Let's talk about the Toxic Attraction. What did you think about this, Issa, in that Toxic Attraction tease backstage that they're both going to win this Royal Rumble? And then they had a screwy finish, your second screwy finish of the match of the night, where they both got eliminated at the same time, JC and Gigi. And now they are both the number 1 contender.
Yeah, I hated the tease because it kind of gave away the finish. They should have not had the backstage interview. They should have not had the finish either. I didn't like the way that the Women's Battle Royal ended. And I didn't think it was going to end that way because they made it the main event. But then I saw the finish, which we'll get into, I guess, of the NXT World Title match. And it makes sense why that was a main event. That I could not understand why Grayson Waller was coming out on top of the second hour. I was like, why is this happening? Like, this should be the main event. I'm always here for the women main event, but this is your NXT World Title, which we haven't seen defended on a random Tuesday in a while. So, I don't know. I don't know what happened to NXT tonight, honestly.
Yeah, there's 2 screwy finishes in this Grayson Waller finish. They screwed around with a middle rope in that they screwed it up. They had to go to commercial and they came back and then the middle rope fell again. And Grayson Waller was trying to get back into the ring. And this really was a terrible finish. And he grabbed the rope and he fell from the rope and he got counted out. But to WWE's credit, they did make the storyline about how bad of a finish this was. And HBK tweeted out, I'm going to be on this. I feel like
justice for Finn Balor. They did the same thing to Finn Balor, and he never got any justice.
Exactly. He needs to be coming back to NXT to get his justice. WWE's gotten so good at pissing off their fan base with some of these finishes that they now know how to recreate this type of scenario because people were pissed in terms of this being the world title match, but they are going to use this to build to a steel cage.
Yeah, and I'm excited about that. But do you think this protects Waller, or do you think it makes the rematch weak now? If Grayson Waller ends up winning the steel cage match, it just makes you wonder why even do this match at all. Why not just announce it for New Year's? For the next PLE, and not have to go through this.
I'm not against maybe if this was the direction that they're going to do a steel cage match at the next PLE. I'm not against them having a screwy finish, but in terms of making Grayson Waller look strong, it did not. He looked like an idiot,
right?
Where the freaking rope is broken. I've never been in a ring my entire life, and I could tell you don't grab that second rope that's already broken and then fall, do the prat fall. I thought he looked completely foolish. I think people
and the ropes broke twice in the match. Yeah, the ropes broke twice in the match.
Yeah, and
it was weird. It was very weird.
Did not make him look too good, but yeah, likely. And the crowd response, the crowd seemed really behind Waller to win. I know there was that dueling chant, but if you watch the match, the heat was for Waller to win that match. I felt like they
and there was a "this is BS" chance after the fact of him losing to a count out.
Yeah, which WWE probably wanted because this is the direction they're going, but not the greatest finish at all. What did you think about that finish, Glenn? Oh, sorry, he has a mouthful of Coca-Cola.
The good Coke too. He's drinking that one from, from other countries and stuff.
Yes, the real stuff. Which finish are we talking about?
Oh, we're talking
Grayson
about
Waller.
the world title.
I mean, like, why are they dragging this out? Just make Grayson Waller champ already.
Thank you.
Yeah, but it should happen at PLE if this is the direction, which I think they will.
It's
it'll
New
be a bit
Year's
reckoning.
Evil. New Year's Evil.
Yeah, but I think that what is their technical term for it? The first PLE standalone outside of Florida, I believe, is how they're christening this. So it's a big deal.
No, that is what Roxanne Perez said, and she completely forgot about Stan and Deliver in Dallas last WrestleMania weekend. Maybe she was too young because I believe she's 12 now, so she probably doesn't remember what happened, 6 months ago. But that is not the first PLE outside of the whatever performance center.
And she did say it was 3 years in 3 years, but even that wouldn't be accurate.
No, it's not accurate.
What did you think about
Tiffany? Learn how to. I mean, although she can only talk about going to Booker T's wrestling school. If you ask her to talk about that, she gets it all accurate. Is a Booker T's wrestling school around that area? How can she not know that there was a PLE there?
Yeah, there's no excuse for that. It's right there in Houston, I believe. And Tiffany Stratton came back. What do we think about that? Did we like Tiffany Stratton's return, Issa?
I did. I hated the New Year's gimmick. We're a week late. But I love the fit. I don't know how I feel about the promo. That's where I'm staying with that. I'm happy to see her back.
Not much of a reaction. I think everybody kind of figured it would be her, but when the countdown was happening, I don't know if they rolled her out and you still couldn't really see her, and then they put her name on the screen, but I didn't feel like this was a reaction I expected.
Glenn, how do you feel about it?
I like Tiffany Stratton. I think, what do they do from here? I don't think Toxic Attraction's winning those titles. I think it'll be a good match that will help Roxanne appear more legitimate if she defeats two opponents, if it's like a handicap match or a triple threat or whatever. I could see if Vince is in charge, I think Tiffany Stratton will be champ before Nikita Lyons.
Oh yeah, she might be on the main roster before
anybody's gonna be champ before Nikita Lyons, especially the way she performed tonight in that battle royal. So impressive.
She's got merch on the WWE shop today.
Have you bought it yet?
No, I have not.
Have you seen anybody wear it yet?
It just was released today.
We're gonna track the merch sale of Nikita Lyons and see how
I invested all my money in that Uncle Howdy mask that's super uncomfortable and that muffles my voice.
Do you have it here?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you weren't on that week.
Oh, yeah, you showed it. Okay. Oh, that's
no.
Uncle Howdy.
Uncle Howdy was on the podcast.
Oh, Uncle Howdy himself. Wow, incredible.
Yeah. With the mask and everything.
It's very uncomfortable and very muffling. No, I think okay, so HBK probably stays in charge of NXT with Vince back, but it's going to be back to NXT's developmental yada yada, just all the bullshit that we just got or that we're just sort of coming out of, right? Of trying to do because look, they just signed established wrestlers again.
Yeah, they signed Dragon Lee and Carl Fredericks from New Japan Pro Wrestling, which I think is a very underrated signing that nobody's talking about.
No, but that's 2015. That's 2015 NXT strategy.
Yeah, it's the sign the indie type talent. They were going back to that. It seemed like that's the direction they were going back to, and I think that immediately is gone with Vince McMahon.
Absolutely.
Back. Gallus returned, so they're back, and they became the number one contender. Pretty Deadly, as Issa mentioned earlier, did lose. They were in a gauntlet. They faced the Rockers.
Erroneous on all counts.
And they beat the Rockers, which really did not turn out to be the Rockers. But Gallus is your new number one contenders. Erroneous, Issa?
I hated it. I thought they knew they should have not become involved. Let Pretty Deadly pick their teams and become number one contenders. I'm not asking for much here.
And I thought it was going to be Brazongo, not Gallus. Everybody loves Gallus.
Keep hope alive. There's always. I feel like
I just interviewed Fandango Sunday night. He was here in Puerto Rico.
Very nice. I saw you interviewed Johnny Morrison. What is this? Johnny Pueblo now?
Oh, I named him Johnny Pueblo. Yeah, he was here at an event in Puerto Rico, and so was Fandango. I thought about you as soon as I saw him, Glenn.
And did you ask, so what's the fucking deal? Have there been talks? Has anyone said, hey, are you available?
No, I didn't ask about that. He seems very happy right now. Why would he go back?
He does, but no, he liked and retweeted something I said about him coming. I mean, he's not going to turn it down. Yeah, I mean, you don't think that it won't help his indie dates if he's on national TV again?
I don't know. I didn't ask him about that. Sorry.
Sounds like we need some follow-up questions for Fandango for Glenn. And like Glenn wants like ask Glenn or Glenn asks. You should just ask questions that Glenn wants to know.
I mean, that's on Twitter. Oh my God. They should rue the day they verified me on Twitter, because it was just like, I'm going to just tweet the most random questions at people that I want answers to. And I'm going to show up in their verified feed. So they're more likely to,
Hell yeah.
more likely to get involved. Has MJF
Well,
has not issued
those were the days. Those were the days. Now
Yes.
everybody's verified. So now that
Yeah.
don't even matter.
MJF has not tweeted yet since 8 hours ago.
MJF's, but we need to be monitoring MJF's Twitter, Max Caster's bars, Tony Khan's Twitter. It's going to be some spicy comments coming up here in the next week or so about WWE in Saudi Arabia.
Do you think NJF is still going to have the biggest bidding war of 2024 if the ownership of the company changes?
Yeah, that's being from the Israeli. That might change things, but why not? I still think.
What do you mean, Alfred?
I think that might have an effect. Listen, we are talking about all these different, what type of impact Saudi Arabia could have in terms of bidding. I don't know how much they'd want to bid on certain people.
Johnny Mofongo. I'm sorry, I just popped for Johnny Mofongo in the chat.
That'll be interesting. Here's the thing, it's not just MJF, but AEW free agents. How are they going to take to this? I know a lot of these moralists who think that we live in some fair world, which I don't know where anybody got that from, that America's this fair country. Please. Like, whatever. So there's a moralist that, but let's talk about reality. This company, WWE, when that figure comes out, I think it's going to be a monster number. It's whatever we think, it's going to be inflated. How is that going to affect AEW free agents? I know we want to think that, they're going to take a stand, and a lot of these AEW wrestlers aren't going to want to make money. I've never known a wrestler who doesn't like money. WWE is about to probably make more money than any company in that stature has ever made. How's that going to affect AEW free agents?
I don't think the wrestlers are going to see this money. In fact, now I actually think
the free agents may. I know what you're saying, but the free agents, when it comes to stealing them from Tony Khan, I think that's where this money comes into play.
I don't know. I mean, because I think this actually, in a weird way, remember, Vince is the person that believes WWE is the biggest star in all of WWE. And since WWE is an extension of Vince McMahon, he believes Vince McMahon is the biggest star in all of WWE. So I think with Triple H versus Tony Khan, that's a very competitive situation. But with Vince, I don't know. I don't know that Vince is going to be like, gotta have FTR back. That's gonna.
Okay, I can tell you there's empirical evidence that he will do that, especially when it comes to FTR, because they offered FTR, I think it was $750,000 to stay. I don't think it would be about whether or not Vince McMahon values any of these people. The Canellis has made $1.5 million with Vince in charge, all because he wanted to keep them away from AEW. So from the standpoint of, I'm going to hurt my competition by bringing back Dean Ambrose and putting him on main event, like, that's not going to happen. But I think Vince McMahon absolutely would, just to hurt the competition, overpay for certain free agents.
But hadn't that stopped, and that's why we had all the releases, is they just didn't give a fuck about that.
Because they wanted to set the company up for a sale, which has happened. And not only did the sale happen, they're going to be private. We are in the toxic era. We are in so we're not going to know a lot of what goes on between these back dealings of Vince McMahon. So I think anything's on the table in terms of how he goes about. If I'm Tony Khan, he's going to have this like cutesy things. Vince McMahon just survived what was his biggest downfall of his entire career. You think AEW's light work? You go ahead, piss that man off at your leisure. AEW's light work for what Vince McMahon. You go and have your tweets. I think Vince McMahon's coming back with a vengeance. I think AEW needs to be afraid.
Do you think that Vince will start tweeting his own tweets now that the company might be private?
Oh, Shane's birthday is going to be lit.
What is that?
And Shane's birthday. I don't know. Hey, isn't it almost someone else's birthday?
No.
Shane's birthday.
No.
Are you sure about that, East?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
I'm having a midlife crisis.
It's
It's actually 55 minutes into it here in Puerto Rico.
Oh, that's right.
Ooh.
How does it feel?
Happy birthday.
No, let's not do that.
Guys, Shane McMahon's birthday is in 5 days.
Oh,
Yeah.
God. We're getting a tweet, definitely. We're going to
January
retweet if
15th.
you don't like something.
Wow, Issa, you and Shane are the same sign.
Yeah, with Capricorns.
Wow.
Makes sense why he was so full of himself when he booked that Rumble last year.
That's how you would have booked it? That you're going over?
Oh, no, I would have had Bad Bunny win, obviously.
That is a great question about Vince McMahon's Twitter. I always wanted Vince McMahon to actually be on Twitter because it just seems like somebody runs it for him. But I really want him.
It just seems
Be
it's so
crazy.
clear.
Oh,
It's so
definitely.
freaking clear.
I'm sure they run it by him, or maybe they don't even show him what they're about to tweet. Maybe they just post what they think Vince McMahon would say. But I would love to see Vince McMahon for 24 hours just take control of his Twitter.
Did he tweet one time a picture of him at the gym with the little Pokemon thing in there? I believe he tweeted that himself. Shane's birthday tweet, forever a legend, though.
Forever.
What world are we living in? What universe is this?
I don't know.
I think we're done covering NXT. So the NXT discourse has concluded.
So we're just back to therapy now. We're just back to being a support group.
Yes.
Like I just keep waiting. Like when's this gonna drop? When's this gonna happen?
What time is it in Saudi Arabia now?
Tomorrow morning,
7 a.m.
Oh,
It's almost 8 a.m. Isn't that when business start picking up? Offices open. I don't know.
Could be happening soon. Wow, Shane McMahon is going to be 53 years old this year.
oh man.
You feel old yet?
God. Doesn't look a day over 50.
Actually, Shane McMahon has looked like he was about 50 years old for the last 10 years.
20 years.
Yeah. He's aged. You take all those bumps, that's what happens.
Yeah. So this is interesting. I mean, I think Triple H has done an amazing job of getting the hardcore fans. There's a ripple effect in any industry. You have your hardcore fans and they almost become enthusiasts and ambassadors and evangelists for your product. And he has done a great job of winning that contingent back in the last few months, many of whom gave Tony Khan a try, but just came back to their one true love, the WWE. And now we're in a situation where, I don't know, I think this is good for Impact. I think this is good for NWA. I think this is good for MLW and anyone else. I mean, if there's a contingent of talent that's on the market, there's probably an argument to be made. Whatever the price WWE goes for sets this idea of, okay, this is what a wrestling company could be worth. And that gets investors excited.
Yeah, I would see they're looking at WWE though. WWE and any other wrestling company are two entirely different things to a lot of investors. They see WWE as like the NBA and everything else is a G League. So it's, it'd be like saying, the NBA got sold and so this is great news for the G League. It's still the G League. And that's how a lot of people are going to look at
people
AEW.
Like, what's that thing that Ice Cube's been doing with the 3-man teams?
Yeah, the big three. That's coming up. That's doing a good job.
People talk about that.
Yeah, the big three's out there. It's still, and that's, that might be the comparison, especially given how much money WWE is making right now. It just depends. AEW is in a very unique situation. I have not heard that they have a bunch of different bidding partners. It looks like it's going to be WBD or bust. And that's a nervous position to be in because not only are companies not paying as much for TV rights, given how far down the ad rates are going, but also WBD is in the middle of this ugly merger where they're not spending a lot of money. They're threatening to part ways with the NBA, which if I'm hearing that as AEW, I'm nervous as hell. So maybe hopefully in the final hour, they'll be able to pull out another bid or Apple Plus or Amazon or something like that. But I think AEW might not get what they're looking for in terms of a rights increase. I think there's going to be an increase, just won't be that much.
Well, but doesn't the average wrestler make considerably less than the average NBA player?
Way considerably less.
Yeah. Oh man, it's great. As we're looking on Twitter, everyone's like this. I mean, you're Raj Giri. Let me just explain something to the audience for people that haven't followed Wrestling Inc. for a long time. Raj Giri is not a man of wild speculation. So when Raj says like, I trust and believe this is happening, I mean, he gets direct scoops like the Sasha Mercedes release situation, but for him to believe something like this has happened, that's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people on Twitter, who are saying that this is it's like it's one of the top trends in the world right now, not just curated. Saudi, 79.5 thousand tweets. I mean, all kinds of speculation and all kinds of credible people reported broken stories in the past saying that this is something that they expect, to be imminent.
Now, Issa, this is not what you wanted for your birthday.
Not at all.
Now, if somebody wants to buy Issa the WWE for her birthday, she's open to that.
No, just send me the money.
Bad boy Joey Janela is saying that he also has heard that people might be selling WWE to Saudi. So for what that's worth, bad boy Joey Janela is saying that he's heard that it might be sold. You heard it here first.
Wow.
What's up with Joey? It seemed like he had a good thing going with AEW, and then he was one of that first wave that just sort of quickly dropped out of the top tier or the mid tier, you know?
Yeah, really one of the rare talents that was quote unquote cut, or I don't know if his contract was up and they didn't renew it, but you don't see too much of that in AEW, and he was a casualty of it. Gaming
I think
for $5. How many fans will stop watching? Well, we covered that. Nobody will stop watching. The ratings are going to go sky high in the first couple of months of Vince McMahon. If Vince comes back and it's understood that Vince McMahon is taking over, the ratings are going to go up only because of curiosity. And then I think people will stop watching. But if they stop watching, it'll be because the product got boring or whatnot. And if they stop watching and The Rock comes back, they'll be back. We all know what outrage is. It's a game. It's a
what
video game.
What if we get the egg from the Netflix movie again? What kind of rating will that be?
No.
Well, I think an extra 500,000 people at least. That egg is going to draw.
Now, if Bad Bunny is involved in WrestleMania, how excited will Ryan Satin's hairdresser be to tune in?
Isn't that you, Issa?
What?
Have you ever done Mr. Satin's hair?
No, ew.
Watch Bullet Train the other night.
Do you see how good Bad Bunny was in it?
He was barely in it.
Okay, but he was good.
It's good.
I didn't say that you time his screen time.
That movie was kind
I
of a
said,
hot
wasn't
mess.
he good? Yeah, it was. It was
Was
a
this
little too long.
Was it like a cameo appearance, or did he like? Do
No.
No, he's
There-
in the movie. He has a role,
Oh.
and then he's dead half of the movie. But anyways, it's good.
Yeah.
It's a good movie. I liked it. It had like a weird sense of humor. I wish it would have been just a little bit shorter. But
Yeah,
it
it
has
was
Brad Pitt in it. It was fun.
convoluted. There's some fun surprise cameos in it, but it's a very convoluted story. I watched The Menu last night, which people have been saying go in blind if you're going to see that, and I highly recommend it. Like, don't read anything about it, just watch
Yeah.
it. Very
Same.
good dark comedy.
Mhm.
Yeah, man. The world we are living in, the things that are happening. Vinnie Mac. Talk about it. VH1 needs to bring back the show Best Week Ever, just to talk about Vince McMahon's week.
I still love that show.
Yeah, that's such a bingeable show.
Yep.
I just need to see what's going on behind the scenes, like whether it's a docu-series, whether it's like a reenactment or a documentary. I'd like to see this repurposed. Whatever's going on behind the scenes between Vince McMahon being ousted, somebody dropping dime on him, and him coming back and Stephanie leaving. This is so much more interesting than anything is happening in front of the camera. And it's been a good year or so for wrestling. It's not an indictment on what's happening in wrestling. It's been a good year for wrestling, but I would much rather see this.
I don't think we're going to get a WWE 24 or the week of, or, you know, one of those docu-series about the sale of WWE.
Oh, no, not now that they're private. Not now that they're private. It's going to be W24. Mind your own business.
I think, I mean, okay, so let me tease this. I think we're going to hear some amazing stories that start to come out soon, like NDAs be damned. I think we're going to start hearing some very interesting shit. So, like, somebody's going to talk.
Maybe.
Alfred, are your contacts with the car? Are the streets still employed?
Oh yeah, and a lot of people. That's all they're talking about. Is this is what have happened, and people believe it. Nobody knows anything yet. I do feel like WWE knows, and they're not saying anything yet. There's reasons for that. There's probably legal reasons for that. But
oh no, when you do a sale and an acquisition, I mean, let me tell you, I know companies have been acquired before. It is a process.
Oh yeah.
And by the way, here's the craziest shit about all this. The number one thing in any acquisition, and I've been around this as a journalist in companies I've worked for, the number one thing is secrecy. You are not supposed to say anything until the deal is done, which leads me to believe, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head earlier. I think Vince had this deal in his pocket and came back, fast track this. That's the only way this happened so fast. He didn't come back and then he got a call from MBS and he was like, hey man, like, Let's do
I'm going to
business
help
together.
negotiate. Yeah.
No, I think he said.
Yeah.
I
He
think
had
he
all his
said.
ducks in a row.
In fact, okay, so you know how there's the Elon jet tracker? I wonder if you were to look at some private jet flights, I wonder who flew to who. Because you don't do an $8 billion, $10 billion deal over Zoom.
Right. That's a good question. The better question, were there mechanical issues on this plane?
That's the craziest shit, right? I mean, but again, like I will say this for anyone that does not watch this. I have so much a greater appreciation and understanding of the McMahon family since Succession has been on the air.
Yeah. That helped me predict what was going to happen. This is exactly not necessarily the sale. I thought they were going to go private, but with Endeavor. But Vince coming back and being the controller of the board, that told me, oh, this guy will definitely be back. Especially knowing what we know about Vince McMahon and how much he's a fighter.
Yeah. Issa, does Roman get do they give him like a Porsche? Like, what does Roman get as an acquisition gift for?
He's gonna get squashed by Mansoor. I'm scared.
Don't you keep putting out there? He said, don't put that out there about your guy. It might end up happening. They might get ideas.
What have I told both of you? Expect the worst. Roman Reigns is gonna get squashed by Mansoor night 1 of WrestleMania.
Oh God. Gaming Sage Pro for $2. How does this affect the women's division? Yeah, I mean, that is something that we did kind of bring up. I think a lot of people are looking at this deal like, oh, Saudi Arabia is going to be in charge, and that means no women will be on TV, and that means they're going to be in America under Saudi rules. No. Saudi Arabia owns a lot of American companies, in fact, that we're just able to keep going. The fact that Vince McMahon, of all people, was selling to Saudi tells me he probably has assurances that he gets to do whatever he wants. So I don't think we have to worry about. You should worry about the creative. Don't worry too much about, are they going to be able to put Sami Zayn on TV? Because I don't think that's that much of a concern.
Okay, so I just looked. So they have $7 billion of investments that they made just in August in U.S. companies, including Amazon, BlackRock, and Meta. But who do they own outright? That's what I want to know. They bought a stake in Disney, but this is a little different. You know? $464 million in Alphabet, which owns Google, 432 in Amazon, 492 in PayPal, 473 million in Microsoft. So yes, it's shares, but I'm very curious who they own outright.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there's a whole article, corporate America's the highest in Saudi America, to Saudi Arabia, Saudi and Arabian companies and banks in the USA. Yeah, they've invested $7.7 billion in some of the world's most preeminent companies.
And by the way, I mean, I don't have an issue with foreign countries having investments in U.S. companies. That's actually quite common. I think the question is buying it outright and what's the level of control. Because, okay, so let me also posit this with Vince in the future. Doesn't it seem weird? I can understand if for a period of time they want to have Vince stay on, but why would Vince come back and say, hey, Saudi Arabia, buy the WWE for me, and then I'm going to just work my job, and pay me a fair salary? Like why? What drives Vince once Vince has won the game and has all the chips? You don't keep playing Monopoly once you have all the money. And you just sit there and watch like all the plebes you're playing against go around the board and, have to, offer you like their watch to pay rent on Boardwalk,
Yeah, but I mean, it's not about the money. I don't think this is at all a money play. I think it's just about him being in control. And I think that there might have been, I think we're going to see that there are terms there that dictate that Vince McMahon is allowed to do X, Y, Z. Now we've seen things like this fall apart, like where somebody thought that they were going to be a consultant or whatnot, or they were going to maintain power of their company and they didn't. But I mean, Vince has very good lawyers, and I don't think he would have pulled the trigger this quickly if there weren't already something that says he gets to control these type of decisions, at least creatively.
So his quote is going to be like NSYNC said, you have to recognize it's all about respect.
Yeah, it definitely is.
No, I mean, but that's my question. Like, so what's Vince McMahon's motivation? But he's got all the money. He's got, like, you sell the company. I understand if he has to stay on for a while, but like, what can they possibly give him 2 years from now when he's 80 years old, what can they possibly give him to make it worth his time when he's already sold the company and divested himself?
Immortality. I'm
that
pretty
is
sure
true.
the Saudis will come up with a way to figure that out. So
They could afford it.
I know. They'll freeze him until they figure out how to bring humans back or something, you know. I don't know. Like Disney.
As long as he gets to run his company, I don't think Vince gives a damn about any dime. I think as long as what they have in it for Vince and why he went to Saudi, for all we know, they could have been negotiating with all these other companies and they said, no, we will not work with Vince McMahon. We're too scared of the backlash and we don't agree with what he's done. But they're companies. It's about backlash and what financial will be. And maybe he just went to Saudi because they were a last resort, or maybe he just knew that this is the situation where I would have the most power. These people tend to look up to me. And so I'm going to come out and control WWE with Saudi money. I don't know. I don't know why, especially after what happened with all those mechanical issues and all that. That's what made me nervous about the Saudi government. That's why I think that they were so low in terms of betting odds, is that there was that pissing contest that could have become fatal a couple of years ago. Well, and now here they are in business together, gleefully hand in hand.
I mean, there was no, this wasn't Die Hard. They weren't actually legitimately holding the wrestlers.
We didn't know what was happening. Okay, for a while there were wrestlers who thought that that's what was going on. It may not have been what was going on, but some scary stuff was going down. It seemed like, according to some of the court testimony that they've had, there was some issue that these wrestlers were stranded on this plane. And it definitely was a power and control issue between Vince and MBS.
Was there snakes in this plane?
No, you got to say it the right way. Not just on this plane.
You know the quote.
Not just snakes.
You know the quote.
I mean, okay, so let me ask you this: if you were a wrestler and you were on that plane and you felt like you were a pawn, and that government entity did not give a shit about you or your well-being, how are you going to feel if those are your new bosses that you're papered up with for years?
I mean, Vince doesn't give a shit about a lot of these wrestlers in their well-being. How is that any different? You think Vince? I mean, I'm sure he develops a human connection to some degree, but being in the wrestling business, you better be about yourself. If you're in the wrestling business for promoters and bosses to care about you, you're in the wrong business.
Maybe they'll get a raise.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see Vince playing his game. I think he's going to use this. This money is not for Vince. This money might be, maybe this is the amount of money that they need to put AEW out of business. I mean,
okay,
anything's on the table.
Here will be the most hilarious thing is if they get a super premium per share and it comes out that Bo Dallas or somebody had been buying WWE stock. And now because of this, they're I don't need to work anymore. Somebody they want is I made too much money off this. Go F yourself.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
And they do that on TV. Because they're having a funny.
Oh, that's a good angle. They won't be doing those sort of angles. I don't know. It's crazy. 400. How do this keep growing? I like how more people find out what's going on, and they're
Somebody
just
said, how much does Undertaker get to come out of retirement?
Nah.
And you were talking about these people being nostalgic, so Taker is just waiting for the phone call too. So.
In these Saudi shows, we saw Undertaker come out of retirement or, come back temporarily. We saw Shawn Michaels come out of retirement. We've seen Triple H matches. We saw Mark Henry come out of retirement. This might go back to being WWF. Maybe they'll buy the rights to WWF and turn it back into that.
And they'll just destroy all the wildlife. And they'll be there's nothing left for you to protect with your funds.
Pandas better get your stuff in order.
Are they going to protect the pigs from Logan Paul? That is the question.
I
Yeah.
think we've said everything that needs to be said about this.
Okay, so we've got
nothing that can be said until we confirm everything that's going on. There's more unanswered questions. I guess we have what? How many people watching right now? We're
almost
just
500.
A giant support system where we're just talking to each other through this. But there's really not a lot that can be said right now until we hear the details about it.
So we've said Sami Zayn most likely to take a principled stand. Whoever the next person released is going to be the person to say they took a principled stand, but they really just got fired and they're trying to cover it up with that. The wrestler that benefits most from this is
Mansoor. Oh my God. was great. No, isn't it Mansoor? No.
Mansoor. No, he'll go back
Yeah.
to Mansoor. We can't get that bougie stuff in Saudi Arabia. We got to go.
Oh yeah, you can. They're bougie AF.
Oh yeah, but they're within their own rights. Or what's left of them,
Wrestler that gets hurt the most by this.
Oh, Sami. I mean,
Yeah, possibly.
I don't know if any individual wrestler will be affected by this. I think this is going to affect WWE on a macro sense more than what Saudi Arabia thinks about one individual wrestler.
I predict a wrestler. I'm not going to name any names because I don't have it in mind, but I predict a wrestler from NXT will be the first person to say the wrong thing publicly about this and have to like delete the tweet.
It'll be Braun Strowman for sure. He's going to say something. He's going to get everybody in trouble. He's going to say something and they're going to pull the sale off the table.
Oh my God, somebody wake him up. Oh, wake him up right now and have him tweet, please.
Hey,
no,
he's the greatest.
Because then he turned into a hero. He turned into a hero for the internet wrestling community. Boxing fan for $1.99. Breaking Mansoor ends Roman Reigns' title reign. That's the word on the street.
And by the way, we're saying this just so people understand. It's because if you go back to the original Greatest Royal Rumble, they made it seem like Mansoor was a homegrown Saudi Arabia talent. Like his story was greatly told and pushed through the first and then subsequent appearances for a while. Like that was kind of his gimmick for quite a bit.
And outside of Saudi Arabian nepotism, this guy, I think, should be a top star. They should give him a look in terms of developing. Maybe not a top star right now, but I think the guy's super talented. I thought he reminded me of a young Eddie Guerrero. I said it at the time based on how he moves, based on how charismatic he is. I think Mansoor is a supreme talent that Saudi Arabia, politics or not, should be pushed in WWE. Stop screwing around. Start pushing Mansoor.
It's my birthday, for Christ's sake. Make some sense in those words you're speaking. Who knows? Who knows?
Mansoor is the next Universal Champion, ladies and gentlemen.
What do you think Dominic Mysterio is up to tonight?
I mean, he's probably playing a game of dice. He's probably out in South Central, out in Watts. I mean, Dominic doesn't play around, man.
Do you see him do the pose yesterday?
Oh, no, yeah. Amazing pose.
Oh my God, so good.
Blood in, blood out right now. Just studying for his next promo.
Snitches get stitches, so he's not gonna tell you what he's doing right now. Just be scared, very scared.
Now I see what Martha Stewart was talking about. God, this character is so good.
And when the Miz said you were only detained for a few hours in a county jail.
I like Kevin Patrick saying there have been Instagram stories last longer than how he was in jail.
Okay, here we go. By what percentage do you think Brock Lesnar's asking price just went up per appearance?
Yeah, how long? It's coming. His contract comes up in 2024, so we'll be seeing Brock Lesnar in AEW t-shirts to try to get that Saudi money. He's going to go all out trying to get that. He's going to show up at airports wearing a Jacksonville Jaguars jersey just to cause that speculation. Brock is the best in the world when it comes to leverage, and I think that he's going to get his back.
Brock don't gotta do any of that. They know.
But he does.
Brock. They're not gonna let him get to that point. They're gonna give him whatever he wants, whatever money he wants, whatever contract, guns, animals to fucking shoot up. They're gonna give him whatever he wants.
Yeah, but Brock knows how to play the game. It's like when he took that picture with Dana White, like I believe the night before he got this big increase from WWE. He took a picture with Dana White to make it seem like he was going to go to UFC.
Yeah, and then he still went and worked for Dana White after that. Brock is incredible.
He'll get his bag no matter what. He knows how to play the game.
And how relieved do you think Dana White is tonight?
No, that he's not the biggest.
Defense, well, is his wife nearby or not?
I mean, like you couldn't again. Like we're living in a time where if you wrote some shit like that, people would be like, "That's not believable. That's a little too Seinfeld for real life."
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a lot of times reality is stranger than fiction. But these are some wild times that we're in. But I don't know, man. If you know, as we do, I mean, as surprising as all this influx of news is coming, is it really all that surprising that Vince McMahon pulled another fast one, pulled another carny trick out of his bag, was able to come back just like he did from when it seemed like there was a steroid investigation, just like he did from Chris Benoit? It's like one scandal after another. This man is impervious.
Absolutely crazy. Well, it's interesting. John Alba, trusted, reputable journalist, is saying that people he's talking to don't think that the deal is done.
Well, that can be a lot of things.
True. But, oh, wow. Sorry. Man, Twitter, like wrestling Twitter, this is the most, like, look, okay, let me be honest. Like, before this happened, like, I spent time making the animated GIF after that Hulk Hogan promo on the Legends thing where he kept saying it was bigger than I ever dreamed it was. And I was like, oh, this is funny out of context. And I was like, it's a slow night for wrestling, but I'm going to put this on Twitter. This will get some traction. And then this happened. And now wrestling Twitter is on fire.
Yes, it's going to be a wild night. Everybody stay up because the story could break at any minute. It seems like not any minute, but any hour.
It's 8:30 a.m. Saudi Arabia time.
Yeah,
so
Saudi Arabia is nice early in the morning. Good morning, Saudi Arabia, if you're watching from there. Pleasure doing business with you, if that is the case. You know, the biggest question, how does this change the Fast Nationals? Like, does this change the chain of command and how I get these Fast Nationals? Not saying who sends them to me, but I want to know how this is going to change the Fast Nationals. That's what I'm going to be on the beat about all night, working tirelessly to find out.
Does Tony Khan have to walk a line given his family's business dealings? Like, in being, he's had to in the past. He, like, every time he's tried to throw shade at the WWE's relationship with the KSA, people have been like, yeah, well, your dad has done a fair amount of.
Yeah, you can do this with anybody. Twitter is one big glass house. It's not just Tony Khan. Everybody on Twitter is a hypocrite. It's not real. And anybody, all these people outraged over sexual harassment, a good percentage of them are probably creeps. You know what I mean? Like, so everybody's got a glass house to throw a stone from on Twitter. That's what it's for.
Ron Taylor wants to know, is Mandy Rose? I don't think Mandy Rose is coming back after the sale. I don't think they can afford Mandy Rose with what she's making right now.
Well, anything is possible. She seemed open to the idea on Tamron Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because it'd be a good place to promote her content.
Yeah, go ahead, promote away. You want me to do it?
Yeah. So, Issa, what are you doing for your birthday?
I don't know. Depends on what time we get done here.
Okay.
I like the 2-hour mark. WWE Apocalypse.
I know. I was like, I'm going to come on for 20 minutes and we're going to discuss this, and that'll be it.
I thought this is going to be over in like.
Thank God my power went back on. You know.
Yes. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. But yeah, we can land this plane now. We can land this mechanical issues.
But if you want the latest news, follow Alfred at This Is Nasty. Follow Issa on Twitter at NYC Demon Diva. That's Diva with the 1. And follow me. I'm at Glenn Rubenstein. I'll be tweeting out hot takes and wild speculation, I'm sure, the rest of the night. The wildest speculation.
I can't wait to read.
Like borderline dangerous, careless speculation.
Let's go. I'm ready for that.
It'll be good times. Good times. So everybody, the end of an era, question mark, for WWE? Perhaps.
Fun while lasting.
Maybe.
And what better way?
Tune in to Pro Wrestling Bits for the top 5 moments of the Triple H era as we memorialize a great 6 months. We're going to count down the top 5 moments of the Triple H era tomorrow morning on Pro Wrestling Bits.
We're gonna get like a royalty-free sound alike cover of Boyz II Men. It's so hard to say goodbye.
Yeah. That would be fun.
Yeah. Yes. The toxic era has begun. His Toxic Attraction are the new #1 contenders. And Vince McMahon,
literally the toxic era.
And Vince McMahon doesn't have to answer. Well, he just has to answer to someone, but he's yeah. Could you imagine? Okay, here's my hope. I want this all to go through, and then I want Vince to do something that's going to somehow manage to offend his new backers, and I want him to get fired from his own.
bro.
I could see an ugly ending. You know, maybe there would be a falling out, but You know, who
We'll
knows?
see. Get the popcorn ready. Have a good night, everyone. Tomorrow night, AEW Dynamite. Who's Soraya's tag team partner?
Tony Storm.
Or Tony.
It was announced.
If it is
Okay.
Tony Storm, man,
It is Tony
We're
Storm.
rioting in Inglewood. No, but if it's Tony Storm, that's fine. I
That's
think
why
they're
they
gonna have something
announced it,
else.
so you guys have the right expectations.
No, but she gets,
stop,
like-
They
stop
announced
fantasy
it.
booking, you guys.
They announced it. I could see a big appearance or something as a make good if it's not Mercedes. But if they just go straight up with Tony Storm and that's it, and we move on to the next segment, not going to be good.
Yes.
Have
Have a
fun.
good night, everyone. It's
Yeah,
an
looking
exciting
forward to it.
week in wrestling. We'll catch you next time on the Wrestling Inc. podcast. Take care.